welcome back to That Rugby podcast hosted by the Sports Booth.
G'day.
Myself and Hughesy.
Hello.
We come back a bit numb after the weekend.
Yeah.
Like a bitter loss for you.
We were talking just pre-show, folks, obviously none of you have been listening in because we weren't recording then, but it's just, I think, and maybe this can be the episode title, like, I don't know, I usually you're in charge of the creative decisions like that, but the year summed up for the Wallabies can be summed up in one word, and that is frustration. Frustration. Because all of the games we've played this year that we've lost, bar one, have been close games, right? Which, and even a lot of the victories have been narrow victories as well. So it's just, if you just took all of the results, right, and you take all of the one-score games that the Wallabies have lost this year, or all of the results that have been by one score, and you flip them around, it's a much better season for the Wallabies.
Yeah.
It's hard to take heart from that though, because it's like you should still be winning those, but you also look then at, and I know we're going to talk about this later, about all the players the Wallabies are missing, both self-inflicted and not, and you just think, I'm glad this isn't the World Cup year, because if this was a World Cup year and this was the results we're getting out of the World Cup, I'd be bitterly disappointed. But at the moment, I'm just frustrated, and it's like the Wallabies could be one of the best teams in the world right now, and World Rugby is very, very close at the moment. And Wallabies could be near the top of the pack there, but they just seem to find a way to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory.
They do. And talking about snatching defeat or maybe a draw away from the jaws of victory, I watched 72 minutes of really good rugby from my All Blacks just to be frustrated as we, I guess, let go.
Yeah.
And then to be even more frustrated, although understandably frustrated, and we'll get onto this when we do talk about the All Blacks game, about the ending.
Yeah.
But it was a frustrating weekend of rugby for proud rugby nations.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. You've got...
There's always the classic comparison whenever you get a draw in sports, and I hear it a lot from American sports, where it's like you're kissing your cousin.
Your sister.
Or kissing your sister or kissing your cousin.
I've never heard the cousin one.
Well, either way. Or maybe that's more American. But yeah, kissing your sister, it's like, you don't hate it, but you're a bit weird if you like it.
Yeah. If you enjoy a draw, yeah.
Yeah, if you enjoy it, you're a bit weird, but you don't hate it because it's your sister, But it's like...
It's a woman, but it's your sister.
Yeah. So it's one of those ones where it's a multitude of confused feelings. So at least with a loss, I can feel anger from it. With a draw, it's like, what do you even feel for that?
Yeah, and a draw in the fashion that they drew. We'll get on to that All Blacks game straight away.
Yeah, go for it.
I set my alarm for 4:50 in the morning. The game kicked off at 4:30. Chucked on Stan Sport and started from the start and just slowly caught up. And off to a flyer of a start, the All Blacks, 14-0. Just about made it 21-0, except for a penalty. And that'll be what you hear from me most of this recap is penalty.
Yep.
29 penalties in the game. Penalty every 3 minutes. If we say that the ball's in play for 30 minutes, we're having a penalty every minute just about. So it was ridiculous. But saying that, the All Blacks defensively played really well for 71, 72 minutes. And then it was like the English got shot out of a cannon for the last 10 minutes. I don't know what happened to them. I don't know where it came from because they hadn't looked like doing it all game and scored some fantastic points. Came back really well. You've got to give it credit to them. I was about to, pre that 71st minute try, I would have said that was the All Blacks' best performance of the year. They score a try. Beauden Barrett gets rightly yellow carded. England come back, score a try and pretty much convert with just about the last play of the game. The kickoff happens. England take the kickoff. England kick the ball out, leaving it a 25-all draw. Now, two things came from this. A, England had all the momentum and were a player up because we were still player down. So surely you go for the win. The second thing that I say from this is your friend, what was his name? I don't even know, the French referee.
Yeah, we don't speak his name.
He had blown 29 penalties in that game. It took one little mistake from the English to blow a penalty and lose that game. So I understand it from an English point of view, but it's also a test match. It's not like this is a World Cup final. I feel like maybe England should have given it a go. I reckon they'll look back and Marcus Smith would probably like his time over.
Yeah.
But I do understand where he's coming from. 29 penalties in the game.
And I think as well, I always look at it in the context of player safety as well, right? It's a quote unquote friendly match. It's an exhibition match. You don't win or lose anything by winning or losing the game, other than pride and international rankings, right?
And a bit of history, yeah.
A bit of history, and you're less than 12 months out from a World Cup. Last thing you want, which is what happened in the Australia-Ireland game, is for a key player to suffer an injury, and who might not be available in time for the World Cup. So there's that logic to it as well, and that's a very European way of looking at it as well. And I think draws are a very European thing as well. They get them all the time in football, so
come to love with it. They enjoy kissing their sister, is basically what you're saying.
England is the Alabama of Europe.
Oh, my cousin's looking good.
Well, hey there, ready? It's just, I don't know. I understand it, and when there's so many penalties being given away like that, it's hard. But I guess you also see then the flip side of that in the Australia-Ireland game, where, just for a brief recap at the end of the game, Ireland's up 13-10. Australia gets a penalty at the 78th minute in a position where you could kick a penalty goal, but instead they kick for a line-out and attempt to go for the win, which I really liked. I'm a big fan of that call, especially when it is, again, this is a game that doesn't mean anything. You may as well learn what you've got in your players, and also if you lose, big whoop. Whereas if it's like a World Cup, I'd rather them kick the penalty, level it up, and then play for extra time.
And 100%, you're right on point with what have they learned from kicking that out?
Yeah.
Well, they learned two things. A, Jake Gordon shouldn't enter a maul again. And B, that was the end result there. So say they score a try in 12 months' time when they're playing Ireland in a World Cup semi-final. Yeah. They go, well, we can remember back to that. So we'll kick the penalty and we'll back ourselves to be able to do this.
Yeah.
Saying Jake Gordon shouldn't enter a maul again, like the New Zealand game, that is a penalty. I get it. That's by the book. It's a penalty. It's such a shit penalty. Yeah. It is such a shit penalty. And I think, is it Morgan Turinui, who's the commentator, hit the nail on the head. Factually, he's correct. And the same with the ref in the All Blacks versus the English game. 95% of his calls factually were correct. I don't think he really put a foot wrong with 29 penalties. It weren't like there was any bad calls in there. There weren't any calls where I was like, that's wrong. He just literally ref rugby to the letter of the law.
And that's the problem.
And this is the problem. This is what I kind of wanted to get deeper into, is I don't think so much we've got a refereeing problem where we've got a rule problem where it's like that maul there where Jake Gordon enters in from the side is just, again, another point where it goes, what do we, we've stopped play because of that.
Yeah.
The amount of times I see a scrum go down and the ball's there to be played and we give a penalty, I go, why are we stopping play? We've got the opportunity to keep play going. It's just... to me, we're getting caught up in so many just pedantic rules.
We said sort of a similar thing when the Australia versus All Blacks game happened. It's not that the referee was necessarily incorrect in calling that, but it was also that that's never been called before, kind of thing. And so, yes, that's a rule, but why is that a rule? And then why is he only calling it now? And I don't know. Maybe referees lately have been given instructions from World Rugby that you need to just be harsher on all infringements, right? Just really teach them to play to the letter of the law. And I get there's initiatives out there about player safety and things like that, and I'm a big advocate for that. But that's not all of these penalties can be attributed to heightened increase on player safety and well-being. And they need a good look at themselves to speed the game up and to make it watchable again, because look, Rugby League just had an amazing Rugby League World Cup, right? Especially the finals series. Okay, and that got international attention. When you have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson tweeting out in support of Samoa, right? You got Tua Tagovailoa from the NFL as well. You got international stars, right, advertising that game. That is big for rugby league. That's very, very big, right? And so now a threat starts to creep in.
Yes,
as well. It won't. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. But there is a threat now that there's other forms of rugby that are more watchable that are creeping into the international game. What can we do to keep rugby union on top? Yeah. What can we do to make the game entertaining as well as safe? Because you can do it. I firmly believe that you can do it. There is a balance that can be struck where we can't be content to sit where we are.
Well, I sit there and I watch that England game and I go, that was a shit game. It was a shit game of rugby. Not the fact that the draw happened. Like, even up to the 72nd minute before the All Blacks blew it, they played a good game, but it wasn't a good watch. You know, there was already a decent number of penalties before then, so many stoppages. It just wasn't a good watch. And I like what you said, like, rugby league got swept up in the Samoa run. Now, Samoa don't make that final. A lot of people aren't as swept up as they are. However, the game's a better watch still. Yeah. Like, the game is a better watch. That Kiwis versus Australia game was such a... And this is what... Slightly... As much as I love Samoa making the Rugby League World Cup... Rugby League World Cup final, but the World Cup final was played in the semi-final, and this is the issue I've got with Rugby League, is as great as Samoa are, it would take something special, which they did in the semi-final, to beat one of those two top three teams, and it's going to keep taking... something special for those runs, but you'll have those fairy tale runs. It's going to be harder for those fairy tale runs in a Rugby World Cup. Like, I'll be really interested if a team does that and how we can get swept away in that. But at the moment, you're correct. Like, you look at the two sports and you go, none of those penalties that I'm discussing now have anything to do with, like, a lot of them don't have to do with player safety. Yeah. Like, there wasn't a massive incident. I think there was one neck roll from Rieko Ioane that they called back for a no try. And other than that, there wasn't many incidents in the All Blacks game. All of these penalties were just letter of the law, playing the game. And it's like, I get what they're trying to do. And I get World Rugby probably does crack down hard on these refs and go, you know, you're out there, we're watching your performance, we're breaking that down. And I think they wouldn't be able to say that the ref in the All Blacks game had a bad game, but it was a shit watch because of the game he had as well. Yeah. And it's I don't know where it lies, where the consistency lies, and you can go to a point. I just feel one day I'm going to have to step in the referee's shoes and ref a game of rugby, because I don't know how. I just feel like I'd want a game to flow more. But what's their job description? That's what I want to know from a referee. Yeah. What is a referee's job description? Is a referee there to make sure the game flows, or a referee is there to manage the game within the letter of the law 100% of the time? Yeah. It's one of those open discussions I don't think we'll get any answer with soon, but if rugby wants to hang about, it does need to make some changes.
Yeah, I think as well, look at the Ireland-Australia game, the rash of injuries that were in that game, and, you know, sort of overall look at the injury run that Australia is on at the moment with players being injured, right? There's a greater emphasis on player safety, but and I want to be very clear here, head injuries are very serious. And I say this as someone that has suffered multiple concussions as well. Not nearly as many as these professional players, but I know how they can mess you up. I was 17 years old when I suffered a really bad concussion where I was knocked out for about 5 seconds, and it affected me so badly that when I was conscious again, everything that was the colour blue looked to me the colour green. So the sky was green, my jersey was green. Like, it really knocked you about. So you can imagine what repeated head injuries do. So I want to make very clear first off the bat that head injuries are very serious. But I think there's also not enough attention being paid to the long-term effects of other injuries on these players' bodies. We see it. I take examples from the NFL where former NFL running backs can't walk anymore and things like that because they suffered so many lower body injuries and things like that as well. I think about rugby players suffering the same type of deal and all of the long-term injuries they suffer. We see, Joey Johns in the NRL. Right, he's got pain all through his body because of all the injuries he suffered and things like that as well. And I think those aren't focused on at the moment. I think head injuries are the focus at the moment, which is important. And it's good that injuries in general are being pulled into the spotlight and the long-term health and safety of players. But I think we've also got to look at why are we seeing so many other injuries crop up amongst players. And I think Australia is a combination of bad luck, and also I think their strength and conditioning coaches, well, they're not there anymore. They're getting a new one, so obviously there was something wrong going on in there as well. But there's also just injuries all over the shop as well with lots of teams. So while I do feel rightly head injuries are at the forefront, I think it's time we also look at other injuries, the long-term effects of these, and how we can minimize other injuries in our game as well. Because the attention you pull away from headshots and stuff, I mean, people get hit in other areas. What's that doing to the safety of other areas and things like that? You know, just because you patch one hole doesn't mean you've stopped the leaking.
Yeah, 100%. Yep. There was a couple other interesting results over the weekend. One big one, the massive one. Georgia upset Wales in Wales.
Yeah.
A historic result for them. And you would say if Italy hadn't probably beaten you guys, there would have been a lot of chat about getting Georgia into the Six Nations.
Yeah.
Now, Georgia have beaten Italy this year and Wales. So, again, we're at that point, as we say it every...
to 8 nations, because South Africa want to be in there as well against Africa.
We don't want to lose South Africa.
Huh?
We don't want to lose South Africa.
I know, I'm just saying, but if South Africa want in... then
make it 7 nations. Don't take South Africa, bro. What would we do without South Africa? Have a tri-nations of us, you, and Argentina.
that'd be pretty good.
Nah. We can't afford to lose South Africa.
It's always good to beat South Africa.
But that's the thing. I don't mind. I think it's smart to take for them to be in the domestic competition in Europe, because the TV times and stuff better. But when you're only doing it for like the Rugby Championship, it's only 4 weeks of decent travel. So I get it. It makes a lot more sense than all time round.
And I think
season,
if we were to pull Japan in as well, that's more TV revenue for South
I think
Africa
that'll be the next manoeuvre, I imagine.
I would imagine probably if you brought Japan in, between Japan, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand and Argentina, I'd imagine that's a pretty damn good revenue base to be compared with the Six Nations as well.
100%. I think that takes a step, and I would love...
Japan is a monetary powerhouse in the rugby world.
I would love that to be the next step in the Rugby Championship, and then eventually down the line we add a Pacific team, and so they do like a qualification tournament beforehand. So Samoa, Tonga, Fiji play, and like a freeway thing. Whoever finishes top of that goes into the Rugby Championship. The other 2 teams go and play in like the Pacific Nations Cup with All Blacks XV, Australia A.
Yeah, it's a rough 3-way. Samoan, a Tongan, and a Fijian. It's nasty.
Imagine those games. Yeah. So that's what I would love, like a tournament style, like they did the Rugby Championship when it was COVID, where you take that to one nation, so it goes to Tonga, and then you play the 3 games in Tonga within like a week of each other, and it's just like brutal, like this, show that everyone can see. It would be amazing. So I would love that for the Rugby Championship. I think that would grow the game fantastically.
100%. The more international rugby, the better.
Yeah, 100%. Totally agree. South Africa got a good win against Italy to bounce back. I think they 2 tough losses. Razzie obviously banned after we discussed him last week. So
You're welcome.
That'll be interesting. And then France had an unbeaten season, which is successful.
Yeah.
But I do want to highlight something just because I'm a salty All Blacks fan, and I want to remind everyone about the All Blacks 2013 season where we went undefeated and actually had to play some hard teams away from home. France this year have played Italy at home, played Ireland at home in the Six Nations, played England at home at the Six Nations, travelled to Japan for 2 mid-year tests, played Australia, South Africa and Japan again at home. So who have they played away this season? Japan twice, Scotland and Wales. So no top 5 teams have they played at home. Now, everyone's going to be like, but they haven't lost for like yonks and they beat New Zealand. But you guys, like, if you had played a tough team at mid-year tests, say they had played the likes of Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, I would be like, yeah, right. And I don't want to take anything away from Japan, but they travelled to Japan and beat Japan.
Yeah.
Like, let's not get overexcited by this French team that, the Wallabies just about to beat. The South Africans without a red card probably beat. Like, a lot of people were talking their chances of the Rugby World Cup. I still firmly believe an Ireland with Johnny Sexton, an Ireland without Johnny Sexton doesn't look nearly as good, are the favourites.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that as a salty All Blacks fan. Hughesy, have you got a star of the week for us?
Do I have a star of the week? Look, I mean, overall, I think the Georgian rugby team is the star. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to pick because, I mean, obviously, I'm Wallabies centric. I'm looking at the Wallabies game, but no, I actually have to say that this week, and I do want to highlight this, that I think this week it's hard to pick a star. Like, it's hard to have a player that shone because I'm sort of
still frustrated.
Yeah, frustrated, but also like I felt like the players didn't decide the games. I felt like a lot of the penalties decided the game. But if I had to pick a star this week, and this might shock some people, I would pick probably Dave Rennie or whoever it was that decided to go for the try at the end of the Wallabies Island game, because that was ballsy, and we don't typically see that from the Wallabies, at least not in recent times.
No.
If I had to pick an anti-star of the week, it'd be Jake Gordon and his more penalties, and they sort of cancel each other out, I guess. But yeah, I feel like that decision making, and this is again, I know Dave Rennie lost the game, right? But again, this is why I don't want him fired before the World Cup, right? Because I think. And again, it's so frustrating. All of our results are so close, like less than 7 points. And as well, Rennie is essentially engaged in a sword fight with a hand tied behind his back because of the fucking Ghetto law.
Yeah.
Right? But he's also... like,
Go off on it.
I mean, then also these spring tour tests... right, the revenge tour, he's missing a bunch of his best players because of their international commitments as well, like Marika Korobetti. Karevi got injured from the sevens and things like that as well. Within this game, Hunter Paisami got injured, Tanayal Tupo got injured, Dave Parecki got injured, so on and so forth. You can go back into previous games and see all the other injuries there as well. So I feel like the fact that the Wallabies keep it so close is a good sign. I think Rennie is doing... a good job. I don't know what it is that they need to change, because yes, they're giving away penalties and things like that, but at the same time, what we saw this week is that that's a problem across rugby at the moment with the England Ireland.
No
game.
team is immune to giving away penalties.
The Wallabies just seem to do it in the dumb moments. I don't know. It's. I really want the Ghetto law scrapped. More and more people are talking about it. We mentioned Morgan Turanui before. He was coming out and saying it should be gone as well. I don't know what you do. Like, you look at these international players, right? Like Will Skelton and Quade Cooper and Korobetti and Karevi and all that. Bernard Foley as well. And I look at them, and they've all been pulled into the team at various times. I think, okay, well, if all of these players have been pulled in at the same time, realistically, what would have been the difference to the domestic competition? Nothing. Like, that's the whole point of the Ghetto law, is to make sure players stay in Australia to play for Australia. But I think you've got to build your resume in Australia anyway before you can go and play internationally. Like, that's the whole thing. Like, these players, we're always going to be getting new talent as well. And yeah, I don't know. We still are going to have superstars in Super Rugby as well. Yeah. So,
that's what I totally think that way. I go, you scrap the Ghetto law and you go, but I keep, as a selector and as a coach, I keep more of my eyes and my belief on Super Rugby. So if you're playing well in Super Rugby, we're more likely to select you, but it doesn't actually matter. Like, I guarantee when you're looking overseas, if you're playing in England rather than playing away from England, chances are you're getting more eyes on you, like from the coaching stuff. Again, it's a bigger sport. They've probably got scouts everywhere doing all their homework. But the same with the French team, same with the Spanish. Like, yes, you can play away from home, but probably playing at home is going to give you a better chance to make that squad. Because I tell you what, Dave Rennie isn't going to be flying over to Europe every 2 weeks to watch you play. He'll be like, okay, someone has to sit there and watch Will Skelton's highlights. Let's see how Will Skelton's doing. Let's make sure he's doing well. But they're not going to be flying over. Okay, Super Rugby comes around. Guess where Dave Rennie's going? I'm going to Melbourne to watch the Rebels. I'm going to Queensland to watch the Reds. Oh, we're going to have a camp for 40 players during the middle of the year. but no one from international can come to that camp because they've got their own commitments.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. They're all Super Rugby players. They get a step ahead. So I go...
You look as well at the assistant coaches for the Wallabies, where they've been pulled from.
Exactly.
Super Rugby ranks. Who are they more likely to think highly of? The people from their own teams, from their own competition that they see. It's just stupid. Like, imagine if, like, we've got the Football World Cup going on right now. Imagine if you could only pick a certain amount of players that played outside of your domestic league.
Look at the Socceroos. The Socceroos wouldn't have made the World Cup if they had the ghetto law.
Spain and France, most of their top players play in the English Premier League, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense. There's no other sport. There's no other team, even within the sport, that...
You're shooting yourselves in the foot.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's no other way. It's frustrating.
Exactly.
to keep the theme of the podcast going.
So I have a lot of sympathy for Dave Rennie as well. And it's why I had a lot of sympathy for Michael Checker as well. Like, you know, he had that was always hanging over his head, but then he also had all the other Rugby Australia issues as well. So
can I just say, I don't know if you've seen the golden era of Australian rugby YouTube.
I've seen the sort of brief overview. I've watched it. I've sort of skipped through it a bit. Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's all right. It's more. I was amazed when I was doing that. And if you haven't watched it, go and watch one of the more recent videos of where I kind of see what I think that we could be going into another golden era and why we could be there. But a lot of the time, so I went through all the stats and stuff and was reading through all the stats from 1990 to 2003 and how good it was for you Australians. And then from then onwards, and there is this like one point where it all stands out, and it's the Checker era of like 2015 to when they make the World Cup final and everything plus that. And I'm like, how did he manage that? With the squad he had, with the resources he had, it is quite a sensational result what he actually got for them. So really interesting looking into that. So make sure you watch that. I want to briefly touch on, because again, maybe I know you're frustrated, and you know what I am? I'm salty.
Yeah, okay.
You're frustrated and I'm salty because I'm salty again. Now, the World Rugby Awards happened, and we all know how angry I was last time, all right? So I'm going to read out the winners of the awards, and then I'm going to share some thoughts, and then I'm going to read you the team of the year, and then I'm going to find a dark corner, and then I'm going to cry. Okay. The award winners, Ruhei Demant for Women's 15s Player of the Year. Understandable, she just won the World Cup, captain. Men's 15s Player of the Year, Josh van der Flier. I don't mind that, but now it questions me why Luciano Arm was even nominated. Yep. So, World's 15s Player of the Year, Adi Savia. Women's 7s Player of the Year, Charlotte Keslick.
Yep.
Is that how you
Charlotte
pronounce it? Keslick.
Yep.
She's fantastic. Golden Girl of Australian rugby. Awesome. Yep. Men's 7s Player of the Year, Terry Kennedy from Ireland. Again, deserve it as well. If it wasn't going to go to Australia, this kid's been fantastic for Ireland. Women's Breakthrough Player of the Year, Ruby Tui.
Yeah.
And Men's Breakthrough Player of the Year, Ange Capuzzo.
The
Italian. Cappuccino. Men's World Rugby Coach of the Year, Wayne Smith. We talked about how he turned around the team. The International Rugby Men's Try of the Year went to the Chile try. I don't know if you've seen that one against USA. It's a fantastic try. Australian were robbed, though, I must say. Yeah. But I understand the importance of that try. If you had won the game against France, maybe you would have. But yeah, so those are the big awards from the awards night. Now I'm going to take you through the World Rugby Men's 15s Team of the Year. There's not a lot I disagree with, but there is one I disagree with.
Well, yeah, I can imagine which one.
1, Alice Genge. Yep. He's been fantastic. 2, Malcolm Marks. 3, Tad Furlong. 4, Tad Burney. 5, Sam Whitelock. 6, Pablo Matera. 7, Josh van der Flier. 8, Gregor Aldrit from France. You fucking stupid, World Rugby! You make me... I come back here again, and I just have to get angry and angrier and angrier. Okay, now, I don't want to take it away from Aldrit. He has been fantastic.
Yep. And
France has won 13 games this year. But he has not been better than Adi Savia, and you're stupid if you think he has. Okay. Dupont at 9.
Yep.
Sexton at 10. Corbett at 11. Freddie Stewart at 15. Will Jordan at 14. I'm all right with all of those. Freddie Stewart has been really good this year, and he showed again against... He is actually going to be the problem child when you play England. Like all this talk about Smith, Farrell, and Freddie Stewart. 12, Damien Dialande, who's been very good for South Africa, and 13, Lakana Arm.
Yeah.
Geordie Barrett missing this team just leaves me a little bit salty. Like, I get he only played one game at 12, and it's probably a bit weird to put him at 12, but I think he deserves to be in that team. That's the only two issues I have.
I would say as well, if Karevi had been healthy past the sevens and played in the spring tour, I think he would have been in there for a shot at the 12 as well, because before that, his form
again, the England series was unreal.
Incredible. Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't want to sound like a salty All Black fan, but I am. And I don't want to sound like I'm in love with Ardie Savea, but I am.
Yes. I was going to say, don't sound like a salty All Black fan. You sound like a salty Ardie Savea lover.
Love boy, yeah. I am. And I'm not angry. I'm not angry. No, I am angry. I'm angry and disappointed all at the same time.
I don't know if Luke's posted this, but he's DM'd Ardie a few times offering to be his personal tackle bag if he needs it. So, yeah, that's the little level we're dealing with here.
Just reply to me. Last few things to finish off with. Portugal and USA draw 16-all, and Portugal advance because of point stuff. Now, I just want to mention this. Yeah, you said Europeans love a draw.
Yeah. How
does this game not go to extra time? Like, I get what
it's qualification.
Like, it's four. It was because it was 4 pool games, but to me, they wasted. That was a fuck around. It was a fuck around from World Rugby again. I'm really attacking World Rugby now, but sort out your rules, sort out your awards, and then sort out your qualification. This is the last part of qualification.
The only thing I'm happy about with it, and I mean, it's not good for rugby that Portugal gone in. It would have been better for the USA, but I'm just happy the USA didn't get in.
No.
I'd rather Portugal get in, but that's the only part of it you could take any satisfaction from.
So the 4 last teams decided to make it a pool game rather than just a straight knockout, and Hong Kong and Kenya just weren't up to those 2 levels. So we would have ended this result with 1 game less, and then just say, hey, it's this is a do or die game. It's not about who has the most points who beat Kenya, and like that's realistically the only reason USA is because they didn't beat Kenya by enough points. Like, ridiculous. The fact that the penalty was on the last minute as well, it just left a salty taste in my mouth. I'm salty still. Now, again, I don't really care. I quite think it's quite funny that USA missed out. And I'm ecstatic for Portugal, and they look like an exciting team. We've got Portugal, we've got Chile at the World Cup. No Canada and USA, which we've seen run that script fucking 10 years.
Expanding the pool of world rugby.
Exactly. So I'm excited for those games. I think Portugal actually ended up in your group. So that'll be, hopefully you don't lose to them. And I know you were mentioning, we were talking about injuries earlier. Nick White, HIA. It's hard. Now, he did stumble. It was a very small stumble. This isn't like a normal, like a Tuatanga Vailoa stumble or a big concussion, but he did show signs of concussion. We mentioned how important it is, head injuries, and was allowed back on the field. Now, he's not playing anymore of the tour, like he's going home, so as part of the injury crew. I'm like, with all the lawsuits, World Rugby is going to be slightly disappointed that occurred. Now, I don't know how it occurred. I'm sure they'll do a report and some findings into it. I just wanted to get your opinion as you had mentioned earlier, how important it is in an Australian fan, what your thoughts was.
That is one thing I would say I would be disappointed as well in the Wallabies coaching staff for, because even if they clear the tests, I mean, it's hard to say because you don't know exactly what Dave Rennie's seeing up in the coach and what's going to happen. But for me, if I was a coach, I saw a player stumble like that after a head knock, I would say, no matter what the tests are, you're out for the game. And as well, it's not... Nick White is a good player, but we've literally got a backup halfback. We legitimately have backups for this reason. This is why you have a reserve bench and everything like that, and why you carry an extra half as well. So, I would have just... Personally, I would have just pulled him from the game, no matter what. And I know that's easy to say from literally... an armchair coach. It's very easy to say from this position, but it's when you come to that stuff, it's just like, okay, if they're not, I would be worried about Nick White at that point. And again, if I'm honest, it's not from a purely altruistic or concern for his health and safety, for him as a person either. It's also me thinking about his availability. Like, yes, of course, it is important that he is healthy and that he doesn't suffer any long-term consequences. But part of my concern as a coach there is like, I don't want him to get re-injured or injure his head again, and he's out for a long period of time, maybe for the World Cup, and I don't have him available and things like that as well. So you do have that brutalistic look at it as well as what is the risk of him getting re-injured. This could, if it's a head injury, it could be something quite serious. This could lock him out long term. This could knock him out long term. I don't want to risk it. Just sit him in the rest of the game, have an early shower. That's
100%. Yeah, I agree. And again, I'm sure they'll review how they handled it, and everyone will when there'll be a report done on it. But yeah, it was just one of those. We haven't had many of those incidents before because rugby's been really good with it. So it was just an interesting point I kind of took from the weekend of rugby. One more week of international rugby left. You play Wales, and there's one more game. Or there's another game as well. Who else plays?
As in, like, I thought you were saying the Wallabies have another game. No, that's our last game. No ice cream for the Wallabies. Hashtag
no,
ice cream
they
challenge failed.
1-3. England and South Africa. Fuck, I didn't know that game was on. Oh, that's going to be a goodie.
Yeah.
Shit. All right. Well, two good games.
Battle of the two most whinging fan bases.
Yeah, that is going to be brutal.
And the Facebook comments after that game are going to be incredible.
Yeah, and if they have a referee like the All Blacks, that shall not be named, they'll be in for a real treat. So,
the Dark Lord. Morgoth's heir. The Night King.
So, yeah, how do you reckon you'll go against Wales? They just come off the back of a loss to Georgia. Last time they lost the game, they bounced back pretty quickly.
I think we'll win, but I think it'll be much like Scotland, where it won't be that big of a win.
Yeah, and I guess
like all our results will be tight. We play up and down to the level of our opponent, and the dangerous thing there is that we don't often play up enough to win, and we don't often play down. We often play down too much and lose.
It'll be interesting to see what squad you name with so many players out.
Mark played well in the wing.
He did. He'll be back again because Callaway's out. So, tough season. Frustrating for the old Hughesy and the Wallabies. Yeah. Salty for me.
But it's all right. Look, if this pain means that next year I experience World Cup glory, it'll all be worth it. No pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Alrighty, team. Thank you for joining us on this episode of That Rugby Podcast. We'll be back again next week to wrap up the end of international season.
Yes.
And then probably do some awards or some show like that afterwards. We'll do something because the Rugby Awards do not know what they're doing. So me and Hughesy will do it 10 times better.
Yeah, 100%.
All right.
We'll be back in the official sports booth trophy room, award ceremony room. And
and we'll kick off another awards. Alrighty. See you later.
Peace.